Welcome, learner, to our new lecture 7, which is based on methods of measurement of elasticity of demand and uses of elasticity of demand. Okay, let's see the learning objective to understand the different methods used to measure the elasticity of demand and their application. We will try to apply four methods in the measuring of elasticity of demand, that is the percentage method, total revenue method, point method, arc method. Along with that, we are also study the uses of elasticity of demand or its importance. Before we start to the topic, let's first understand again the meaning of elasticity of demand, which can be studied in the previous section. So here, elasticity of demand measure how much quantity demanded changes when there is a change in price or other factor. And this is the formula of elasticity of demand that represent the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. We will also study the 5 degree or 5 types of elasticity of demand, that is a unitary elastic, elastic demand, inelastic demand, perfectly elastic and perfectly inelastic demand. Moving on to the main topic, that is the method of measuring elasticity of demand. Here there are 5 main methods that has been used to measure the elasticity of demand. Let's read one by one. The first one is total expenditure method, and this method was given by Alfred Marshall. In this method, elasticity is based on change in total expenditure, that is price and quantity when price changes. So here the elasticity is based on when price and quantity both are changes. Now, the next method is proportionate method. In this method, elasticity is using by percentage change in price and quantity. Now, the third method is point elasticity method. In this method, elasticity when very small change in price and quantity occurs, it is measured at a particular point on demand curve. The next method is arc elasticity. When elasticity has been used when large change in price and quantity occurs between 2 points on the demand curve. The last method is which is based on relationship between the average and marginal revenue. Moving on to the further slide, we will see methods of measuring elasticity of demand one by one. The first method is total expenditure method, or it may be called as outlay method, which was given by Alfred Marshall. So here it measures price elasticity of demand by observing the change in total expenditure, or it may be called as total revenue, when the price of commodity changes. So here is the formula of total expenditure, which represent TE. It's equal to price into quantity. So here total expenditure is also called a total revenue. In here we are seeing the three cases, that is elastic demand, inelastic demand and unitary elastic demand. So according to this method, elasticity of demand is determined by comparing the change in price with the change in total expenditure. Let's see the table. Here you have see when price decreases, expenditure may be increased. This is the case of elastic demand that is greater than 1, right? Uh, As you seen this example where price may be in a decreasing position and quantity will be increased. So here the total expenditure also increase. Just see the table and let's see this particular diagram. When the price is 10 and quantity is 5, the total expenditure is 50, and when the price is decreases, quantity will be increased by 7, the total expenditure will be increased to 56. See this graph shows the elastic demand, which means when the price decreases, total expenditure increases. Let's see this graph where you have seen that when the price is 10, when the price is 10, what is the quantity demanded? Quantity demanded is 5. When the price will be decreases to 8, the quantity demanded will increase to 7. And due to the decrease in price and increase in quantity, total expenditure may be also increases from 50 to 56. Where you have seen that at point A, price is 10, quantity is 5, and total expenditure is 50. But in point B, price is 8, quantity is 7, and total expenditure is 56. So here the rectangle of B, that is this area, is bigger, means total expenditure is also increased. This is the case of elastic demand. In this graph, there are the three cases of total expenditure method of elasticity of demand, which in which we have already seen the elastic demand, in which when the price will be decreases, quantity will be increased and total expenditure will also increase. This is the case of elastic demand. This is the graph where you have seen that the total expenditure will be increased from 50 to 64 due to decrease in price and increase in quantity, right? When we talk about the inelastic demand, in inelastic demand, again the prices may be decreases, the quantity may be increased, but total expenditure will decrease. This is the inelastic demand. So the third one is unitary elastic demand, in which we have seen that the price may be decreases and quantity may be increased, but the total expenditure remains constant at 50. Just see this graph at once. So here price decreases but total expenditure increase, therefore the demand is elastic. The second one is price decreases, the total expenditure also decreases, it means inelastic demand. Why it is inelastic demand? Because there is a large change in price as compared to quantity. And the third one is unitary elastic demand, in which price may be decreases, quantity may be increased, but total expenditure remains constant. You have seen this in graph 50 and 50. So here these are the three variants of total expenditure method, in which we have studied the elastic demand, inelastic demand and unitary elastic demand. Okay, the second method is proportionate method or percentage method. This was again introduced by Dr. Alfred Marshall. So here it measures price elasticity of demand by comparing the percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in price. As a simple words, we can say that how much demand changes when price changes. So here price elasticity of demand is the ratio of percentage change in quantity demanded to a percentage change in price. It is also known as percentage method, flux method, ratio method or arithmetic mean method, because it is the most common used method to measure elasticity of demand. It clearly shows how responsive demand is to price changes. In here we have seen that there are the three variants. Here elasticity of demand is lesser than 1, greater than 1 and unitary. In the next slide, we will study the proportionate method in a graphic way. We will already studied the definition of proportionate or percentage method. Let's see the formula of percentage method, that is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. In this particular table, you have seen that there's a price of A and B, quantity is 5 and 8, and total expenditure is 50 and 64. Here you have seen that quantity and total expenditure are in an increasing way. Let's see the graph first. You have seen at P1 price, that is A point, here the quantity is 5. Now you have seen that at P1 price the quantity is 5 when the total expenditure is 50. But when the prices is decreases from P1 to P2, the quantity will be increased from 5 to 8. Just see the table, that is Q1 to Q2, and the total expenditure is increases. This is the case of elastic demand. Now, the next method is point elasticity of demand. Here, this method is used to measure the price elasticity of demand at a particular price on demand curve, and it is very useful when there are very small change in price and quantity demanded. And this is the formula of point elasticity of demand, where lower segment of demand in the upper way and upper segment of the demand in the lower section. So here lower segment of demand describe distance from the point to the quantity axis, and upper segment of the demand describe distance from the point to price axis. Let's see the point elasticity of demand in a graphical way or in a table way. Here you have seen that point elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a small change in price at a particular specific point on a demand curve, and it describes the lower segment of demand curve by the upper segment of demand curve. Let's see the table first, and along with that we can also see the graph. This is the table of point elasticity of demand, which you have seen the position of demand curve, elasticity value and type of demand. Here you have seen that at vertical axis elasticity of demand is infinity, that is the perfectly elastic. In this graph you have seen that price has been shown in vertical axis and demanded has been shown in horizontal axis. Here you have seen that elasticity of demand is infinity. This is the case where there is no changes in price, only quantity may be vary, or small changes quantity and price may be constant. So here this is the case of perfect elastic demand. The second one is upper segment, that is the elasticity of demand is greater than 1, that is the elastic demand, in which you have seen that elasticity of demand is greater than 1. It defines that there is a large change in quantity demanded as compared to price. That is why the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Now, third is midpoint, where elasticity of demand is equal to 1, which means that percentage change in price and quantity are same. It means that when 10% change in quantity demanded and 10% change in price. So here it is equal to 1. The next one is lower segment or inelastic demand. It describes that there is a large change in prices as compared to demand. So therefore, elasticity of demand is lesser than 1. The last one is elasticity of demand. It's equal to 0. It is also called perfectly elastic. It means that there is no change in demand, only price may be changes. These are the 5 variants of point elasticity of demand. Now, the next method is arc elasticity of demand, which is used to measure the price elasticity of demand between 2 points on demand curve. We can also see in the graphical way from the next slide. So here it is very useful when there is a large change in price and quantity demanded. It calculates the average elasticity between 2 points on the demand curve. So here, our elasticity of demand measures the average responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in price between 2 points on the demand curve. This is the formula of our elasticity of demand, which means that change in quantity demanded divided by change in price. Q1 is the initial quantity and P1 is the initial price. Q2 is the new quantity and P2 is the new price. Let's see the next slide for to study our graph. Let's see the graphical presentation of arc elasticity, in which you have seen that price has been seen in vertical axis and again quantity demanded has been seen in horizontal axis. As you know very well, when we talk about the arc elasticity, we can talk about the elasticity between 2 points, that is A and B. We can talk about the 2 points on the demand curve. First, just look at this graph. You have seen that when the price is OP1, the quantity is OQ1. At point A, the price is P1 and quantity is Q1. But when the price will be decreased from P1 to P2, the quantity may be increased from Q1 to Q2 at point B. So here we can say that at B point, the price is P2 and quantity is Q2. So here this A to B point, the portion of the demand curve between A and B is called the arc. So here arc elasticity measure average elasticity between 2 points. So what is the moment of demand curve? The moment of demand curve is P1 to P2 and quantity demanded changes from Q1 to Q2. Why this happens? Because there is a change in price and demand. So here the elasticity is calculated from for the entire arc AB, not just a single point. So it's very important when the price changes is large, and this graph shows that gives more accurate result than point elasticity of large changes. Again, it also help business understand average demand response. So the portion of demand curve between these points, that is A and B, is called the arc. Here elasticity is measured along arc AB. Now, the next method is revenue method. The revenue method measure elasticity of demand by using relationship between average revenue, marginal revenue. So here we can also see in the graph in the next section. First, we have to understand whether the demand is elastic, unitary elastic or inelastic by observing the value of marginal revenue. And here is the formula of average revenue divided by average minus marginal revenue. And what does ED show? It is the elasticity of demand. So here elasticity of demand, it's equal to average revenue divided by average revenue minus marginal revenue. What is average revenue? Average revenue is nothing but a price of product. And what is marginal revenue? Marginal revenue is addition to the total revenue. First, let's see this graph and this graph explanation, and this is the graph table. Let's talk about one by one. First, you have seen that the marginal revenue it's greater than 0. It means that elasticity of demand is greater than 1. You have seen this graph where marginal revenue it's 0 and elasticity of demand is greater than 1, which means that there is a large change in demand as compared to price. When there is a large change in demand as compared to price, marginal revenue it's positive. It means that selling more units increased total revenue. Now, the next is marginal revenue it's 0. When marginal revenue is 0, the elasticity of demand is in unitary position. Here you have seen that marginal revenue becomes 0, so the total revenue becomes maximum at this point where you have seen in the graph. You can also see total revenue in instead of average revenue also. So here you have seen that when marginal revenue it's equal to 0, there is a unitary elastic demand. It means that average revenue it's also maximum. The next is marginal revenue is lesser than 0. It means that in elastic demand that defines there is a small change in quantity demanded as compared to price, which means that marginal revenue may be negative or selling more units reduce total revenue. This is the graphical explanation which you have seen that average revenue is in demand curve of downward sloping. This is the average revenue, and behind this is the marginal revenue, because marginal revenue always lie below the average revenue. So here marginal revenue it's positive, the demand is elastic. This situation of MR is greater than 0, and when marginal revenue it's 0, the demand may be unitary elastic, that is equal to 1, and when marginal revenue becomes negative, the demand is in elastic position. Let's talk about the uses or importance of elasticity of demand. So here, elasticity of demand is useful for business firm, government and producers in decision making. Let's talk about one by one important. The first one is pricing policy. In here, firms set the price based on elasticity. For example, luxury goods usually have elastic demand, so price increases may reduce demand. The second one is taxation policy, in which government taxes good with inelastic demand because demand will not fall significantly. Here, for example, cigarettes and petrol. The third one is international trade, in which elasticity helps determine export pricing policy, in which countries sometimes reduce prices to increase the foreign demand. The next one is wage determination, in which elasticity of demand for labor helps determine wages in a labor market. For example, demand for skilled labor is often less elastic. The next importance is public utility pricing, in which it is used in electricity, water, and transportation services. Here, essential services usually have inelastic demand, so here price remain relatively stable. The next one is agriculture policy. So here elasticity helps farmer to decide crop production, in which if supply increases too much, prices may fall sharply due to low demand elasticity. This is the summary of uses or importance of elasticity of demand. It is very useful in business decisions and government policy. We can already studied in earlier slide. We can study the pricing policy, in which firms set the prices based on elasticity. We can also study the taxation policy, which government taxes good with inelastic demand. We can also study production decision, firm decide quantity to produce. So here we can also study international trade, which determines export pricing. Next is wage determination, helps decided wages in labor market. Next is public utility pricing, used in electricity, water pricing. The last one is agriculture policy, helps farmer to decide crop production. Thank you so much, learner, for listening me. In the next session, we will study the demand forecasting, their techniques, components, and characteristics. Thank you so much.